Hello everybody, here we are today talking about the news of Lindy Ruff being fired as the head coach of the New Jersey Devils. So before we get into that, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So yes, in his fourth season with the team, Ruff was fired as the Devils head coach, and this is at a time where the Devils have 64 points in 61 games played and are 8 points back of the wild card spot, the final wild card spot. And the chance for them to make the playoffs is still there, but time is running out. Tom Fitzgerald likely not happy with what he's seeing with this side, and I think a big change needed to be made in his eyes because of the fact he basically just said that yesterday in the press conference. But in part, I think a lot of this ties back to how last season went and how well it went for them. Because you have to remember, last season was probably the best season you could argue in Devils history in terms of regular season. In fact, it was the best regular season they'd ever had. The first time they'd made the playoffs since 2018. The first time they'd won a postseason series since 2012. And they sat third overall in league standings. So the expectations going into this year were, okay, we can be a good side yet again, go to the playoffs again, and just see what happens. Now, the Devils, I think, have had some things that have gone against them to begin the year that aren't necessarily all Ruff's fault, but I think at the same time, too, it's some things that other teams deal with. You know, looking at the fact that they've had some goalie issues. Talk to Carolina. They've had some goalie issues all year as well. And I was hoping they would maybe go out and get a goalie, but we'll talk about that a bit later. Injuries, that's another thing that's really plagued the Devils in this time. Dougie Hamilton has been out for a long time. And then other individuals have been dealing with injuries. But, you know, with this Devil side, I would say that, you know, everybody's going to get injuries. But on the flip side, too, you should say, well, we should be able to weather the storm if we are a true playoff team or playoff caliber team. And I think a few areas that are a little bit less excuses you can use if you are Ruff is the fact that this side had star power, has really good players, I think, on this team, and it has a lot of very young players that are seen to be very good. And yes, there might be highs and lows, but if there are going to be injuries, maybe reinforcements are on the way in forms of the younger players, as last year we saw multiple young guys step up and perform for this team. So there's that. On top of that, too, they own like a really bad record, or they share the record with a previous Ottawa Senators side from like the 1920s of allowing the first goal in the game. I don't remember how many it is. I was trying to find it online and I couldn't find an exact answer, but I've seen it on multiple sports channels, and it is just insane how many games they have to play catch up. That's not something you want to do. And I know that that can't always come down to X's and O's. It's going to come down sometimes to a mindset saying, hey, we can't be the team that is always giving up the first goal and having to come from behind to win these games. So there's just a few things there that I did want to point out that, you know, you could probably say aren't Ruff's fault, but at the same time, too, they have some talent that could help them out, and you just can't play catch up. So there is kind of some of the things that went wrong. Now, for the remainder of the season, Travis Green will be the head coach for the New Jersey squad, and I'm not going to say that I'm too thrilled about that. Nothing against Travis, but I just think that with what we saw in his time with Vancouver, if things kind of go how they went there, then that's kind of a weird deal where you'd have him be the head coach. And that's kind of one of those situations where I've said before, it always strikes me as weird whenever you see a team end up making a coaching change, especially when you know that Green's probably not going to be the coach next year. I know some people will say, oh, well, we needed a change. Did you need a change with 20 games left to go? Wouldn't you have wanted to make a change when there was a little bit more time? Or would you have rather just given Lindy more time to finish out the year, possibly, and say, well, if he didn't make the playoffs, he didn't make the playoffs over a full 82-game stretch, and that is that. And I think there could have been other changes that could have been made too, kind of circling back to the whole goalie situation. We talked before about how some of these teams in the league have been talking about, hey, we want to go out there and get a goalie. New Jersey's been one of those teams we've talked about. Carolina's been one of those teams that we've talked about. The Devils have a potential to go out there and make some moves. And I think some things have worked against them in terms of getting some goalies in recent weeks, especially looking at the Nashville Predators. Their run that they've been on and the fact that they're probably going to contend for the wild card and make the playoffs, that kind of hurt their ability to get Jussi Saros. But looking at a guy like Jacob Markstrom, Craig Conroy kind of confuses me at times where he is going to ship out multiple guys and bring in some picks, some prospects, some all that stuff. But then he says about Jacob Markstrom, oh, well, we are keeping him because we're sending a message to our team. And the message I think that he's trying to send is, well, we're still committed to trying to win, and we're still kind of in that, you know, wild card conversation. but I just don't really get it, because if you're just going to ship out a lot of these guys, why not just ship out Markstrom? I think, had something been able to work there with the Devils, you could have got him, and I don't know if everything would have worked out there, but it would have been something that they could have said, at least we tried. I do think he's got some years left on that deal, so I guess there is that there, but still, some of these things have been out of their control. But you're telling me that they couldn't have gone out and maybe got some other goalies that were out there on the market? I don't know. Instead, we're looking at a situation where they're talking about maybe shipping out other guys. Tyler Toffoli is a name that comes to mind of somebody that could be on the trade block, getting moved somewhere else, which, again, big Tyler Toffoli fan here, so if he does get shipped off to another team, hopefully it is a side that is A, going to make the playoffs, and B, a team that I wouldn't mind seeing win in the playoffs. Now, again, circling back to Lindy, do I think this is going to be the end of his coaching career? I really don't think so. I think he'll get opportunities. We talked a lot about how coaches just are in a spot where they can get more head coaching opportunities down the road in the NHL. He's 64, so plenty of time left to coach at the top level. And again, with his time in Buffalo, Dallas, New Jersey, you know that people are going to say, well, he's coached nearly 2,000 games. He's had some really good years. He's been able to make it to the Stanley Cup final as a coach. We could go out there and possibly make the move to get him. So he is probably going to be somewhere down the line. I just don't know where. And as for the decision to fire him, I kind of just have already shared my thoughts on that. Basically, that they should have just let him coach out the rest of the season, unless things go incredibly well with Green or they keep him around for next season. It's just one of those things where it feels like they're taking up time. But now you're looking at Ruff being the 7th head coach fired from this season, and now that is about 1 in 4 coaches, and I think he joins 4 other coaches that had made the playoffs last year. So 5 out of the 7 coaches that had been fired had made the postseason this season prior to this, so it is very interesting to look at that. But anyway, what are your thoughts on all this? Do you think that Ruff should have been fired? Are the Devils the most underwhelming or disappointing team this season? I certainly think that they could make the case for it. Let me know all that stuff down below. Also, let me know if you think there's going to be a New Jersey rebound next year. Everybody, please make sure to like this video. Also, comment, subscribe. Everybody, make sure as well to stay safe. Have a great night, and you go off hockey all right. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.